$250,000.
I understand they've had a bad run of luck, health-wise. PG&E is a $28 billion corporation.
Wow! $28 billion!
The movie starts with an interview between the company's HR person and Erin Brockovich, a woman who had been divorced twice, unemployed, and broke. In the interview, she admitted she never finished high school and has no medical qualifications. She just mentioned she had seen nurses take care of her kids and said she was a quick learner. Of course, the HR person wasn't impressed and turned down her application. Erin went back to her car and found a parking ticket on it. And if that wasn't bad enough, she got hit by a car while driving even though the light was green for her. A few days later, Erin was sent to meet with Ed, a lawyer who was going to help her in court against the person who hit her. When the trial came, Erin sat as a witness and told the whole story. Everything was going well at first, and Ed thought she had the jury's attention until the other lawyer brought up her personal stuff, like being divorced twice and struggling to raise her kids without a job. That's when Erin lost it and got super mad. Not only did she not have health insurance, so she was in debt at the hospital, but she also had no money in her account. When Erin was out, she always asked her neighbor to look after her kids. But one day, the neighbor told her she was moving to her child's place next week, so she couldn't help out anymore. That day, Erin discovered her youngest child had a fever and a cough. She was concerned because she didn't have much money. Her kid needed to see a doctor or get medicine, but they were also running out of food. Erin had to eat canned fruit for dinner so her kids could have enough to eat. The next day, Erin checked the newspaper for job openings. She made a bunch of phone calls, but no one would hire her. One day at work, Ed spotted Erin and called Donald, his staff, who had spoken to Erin earlier and knew she wanted to work there. Ed said hi to Erin and asked how she was doing, but she was mad because he hadn't kept her updated, even though she had left him a bunch of messages. Erin asked to work in the office because she needed money, and she was lucky enough to get accepted. She quickly got a job and a workspace. When she asked Ed about getting an advance on her salary, he couldn't help because the person in charge was out. In the end, he gave Erin $100 because he knew she was strapped for cash, and he didn't want to make her feel bad. Erin got a babysitter for her kids because her old neighbor moved out. One night, when Erin was putting her kids to bed, she heard a loud noise from a motorcycle outside. It turned out to be her new neighbor, George, who's really into Harley-Davidsons. Erin got mad and told George she had a baby and 2 little kids. George said sorry and tried to make nice by asking for her number and inviting her to dinner, but Erin just ignored him. The next day, Ed told Erin to look over the files and also mentioned that some people in the office were a bit bothered by her clothes, so she should consider changing her style. Erin refused and insisted on wearing what she liked. Erin was getting really confused with the files she was checking, so she asked her coworker Anna for help. Anna basically told her to figure it out on her own since she's been working there long enough to know what she's doing. Later that day, Erin came back from work and wanted to pick up her kids, but she was surprised to find that the babysitter's house was empty. She hurried home and checked the kids' rooms, but they weren't there either. Finally, she went to George's place and found them all eating burgers. George explained that the babysitter had dropped them off without telling anyone. Thankfully, the kids were safe with George, who might look like a tough guy but was actually really good with the kids. He even offered to take care of them since he had nothing else going on. Erin initially said no, but eventually agreed because George was so nice. Erin looked at some files before going to bed and found one with medical records mixed in with real estate papers. She saw an offer from a company called PG&E to buy the Jensen family's property in California. There was also a report about the family's blood samples showing some abnormalities, like too many white blood cells, which could mean an infection or inflammation. She wondered why there was a medical report in the file.
The next day at the office, Erin asked Ed if she could investigate something while he was on the phone. Ed didn't really listen to what she was asking, but he said it was okay. That day, Erin took off for the investigation and also to get a break from her office. She made her way to Hinckley, California to see Donna Jensen. Donna told Erin that the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, or PG&E, was pressuring her to sell her house, but she didn't want to sell unless it was at the price she wanted. Erin was puzzled as to why there was a health report in the property sale documents. Donna explained that she and her husband had gotten sick and the company had paid for their doctor's visits. PG&E wanted to do that because the water in the area had chromium from their plants, but they claimed it wasn't dangerous and had nothing to do with Donna and her husband's illness. Erin went to the University of California to chat with a chemist and find out more about chromium. The chemist told her that chromium comes in different forms, some of which are harmful and some are actually okay. He warned her about hexavalent chromium, which is super toxic and can cause cancer. It can even mess with human DNA and pass down issues to kids. Erin asked how she could tell what kind of chromium was in a water waste channel, and the guy said every area has a department that keeps track of water quality. She could check with them to find out more. Erin went to the water quality office another day, and an officer took her to the messy archive room. She spent hours searching and found some interesting documents about cleaning up hexavalent chromium. She also found papers about pollution and contamination relating to hexavalent chromium. She then made copies of all the documents she found. Erin spent a whole week checking things out and didn't even show up at her office. When she finally did, she saw that her desk was all packed up. They also told her that Ed had let her go because she had been MIA for days without letting anyone know. When Erin talked to Ed, he offered to help her find another job, but she said no and just left. When Erin got back home, she found George trying to fix the leaky sink in the kitchen. She was really mad and not very nice. She told George to get out, but George tried to calm her down and comfort her. That brought them closer together. One day, Erin was just chilling and looking for a job in the newspaper when Ed showed up at her door out of nowhere. He told her a chemist from the University of California called with the answer to her question about chromium levels in the body. Erin said she'd fill him in if she got the job back. Ed was sorry because he thought she was out partying, not working. He then hired her back. Erin filled Ed in about her research on the sick Jensen family and what PGE had to say about chromium. She also mentioned snagging a copy of the water test file. She then said she was hoping for a raise. Another day, Erin told Donna that the water they were using was really dirty with hexavalent chromium and that PGE lied about it. She also found out that the doctor who said their sickness wasn't related to chromium was paid to lie by the company. Donna quickly told her kids to get out of the pool after hearing all this. Ed asked Erin to fax all the documents to the complaint department of PGE. Just after sending 2 sheets, the company sent a representative named David. He came with a new offer to buy Donna's house for $250,000, much higher than the market price. Ed refused, saying it wouldn't cover future medical expenses for Donna's family. David said he sympathized, but it wasn't the company's fault. Ed agreed to pass on the offer to Donna but doubted she would accept. David then warned Ed not to find a corporation with so much power, citing PGE's $28 billion value. One time, Tom and Mandy, who live next door to the Jensens, came to see Erin at her office. They said that PGE bought their house last year, so they had to move. While they were still living there, a bunch of their chickens got sick and died from tumors. They showed Erin some pics of the sick chickens. Mandy also mentioned she had 5 miscarriages and thought it might be linked to the hexavalent chromium that Donna told them. Due to this case, Erin was crazy busy and always ended up coming home late every day. Her son Matthew was kind of bummed out because she was never around, and even when she was mentally checked out thinking about the case. It was blowing up with more and more people in the neighborhood getting sick like Donna, and it was probably all linked to the water pollution. Ed and Erin went to visit Donna and some folks in Hinckley. They let them know about PGE's offer of $250,000, but they still want to push for a higher price for health insurance. Ed also mentioned that he would get 40% of the final amount as payment for his services, which sounded like a lot, but Erin explained that it was actually a fair deal, especially considering all the work Ed and his team would be doing. They also made it clear that if they didn't win the case, Ed wouldn't get paid. Despite the risks, everyone agreed to sign the contract after hearing Erin and Ed's explanation. Another day, Erin went around Hinckley gathering evidence. He met kids with rashes, a kid whose parents had cancer, and a couple with a sick kid. All of this just fueled Erin's fire to take on PGE and get justice for the people of Hinckley. Erin was all fired up about standing up for the people in the neighborhood, so she told Ed they shouldn't just talk to PGE about property prices. They should also take legal action for water pollution and all the health issues the locals were dealing with because of them. Ed was hesitant because he didn't want to risk his company and career, but Erin convinced him she could gather all the proof they needed. After hearing her out, Ed finally agreed. Erin started collecting proof, like grabbing some water at Hinckley, finding a dead frog to examine, and even sneaking a sample from the well by PGE. She almost got in trouble with the law for it, and even got threatening phone calls for showing up at the water office so much. 9 months later, Ed and Aaron brought up the case at a party with lots of Hinckley locals there. They passed out flyers detailing what happened and were looking for any info from people who might know something. Before heading home, Donna hooked Aaron up with Nelson, a dude who used to work at PG&E. Nelson spilled the beans about how the cooling for the compressor machine at PG&E was being collected in holding ponds without proper safety measures. This led to water with hexavalent chromium leaching into the ground and contaminating the groundwater. Aaron was floored to learn that this had been going on for 14 years, resulting in millions of gallons of contaminated water seeping into the groundwater. After hearing the info, Ed got super anxious because he was stressed about not being able to afford the crazy high cost of the case, especially since it had been dragging on for months with no pay. Aaron had found a whopping 411 plaintiffs, making the case a big deal. Ed had to hustle and find some loans to cover his expenses during this time. He was also on the lookout for another law firm to split the costs, but no one was biting. One day, Aaron went to see Donna in bed, who was sick again. Donna had another tumor in her body, and this time it was cancerous. The surgeon said they had to take out her uterus. She was really upset and begged Aaron to help them win the case. Meanwhile, the PG&E headquarters in San Francisco managed to dodge taking any blame for the water pollution in Hinckley. They simply said they had no idea what was going on at their Hinckley branch. A judge was called to decide if the case was worth bringing to court, and he suspected that PG&E had been claiming they lowered the toxicity of the hexavalent chromium. Even though they told the locals it wasn't dangerous, the judge saw through their story and decided to take the case to trial for the lawsuit between the Hinckley residents and PG&E. But they still needed to find evidence that PG&E's main company in San Francisco knew about the contamination. After the judge made a ruling, PG&E sent a lawyer to Ed's office and offered $20 million to settle the case with all the plaintiffs. Aaron was really mad when she heard about this. She said that the residents weren't just in it for the money, they just wanted their kids to be healthy. When the PG&E delegation was about to drink the water Aaron gave them, she told them it was the Hinckley water. Right after that, the woman put her glass down and didn't touch it again. When Aaron got back home, the issue came up when George was tired of being Aaron's babysitter. She was hardly ever there and was always wrapped up in her case. George then showed her a pair of earrings that he bought 6 months ago but never got the chance to give to her. He told her that if she didn't start looking for a new job, then she should find herself a new man. Aaron replied that she had no plans of quitting her job. It was the first time she felt respected for what she did and fought for. George then said that her salary should be enough to hire a babysitter and then left the earrings on the bed. Aaron took her kids to the office that day and ran into Kurt, another lawyer who wanted to partner up on this case. He was even willing to foot the bill for everything. Ed was pumped to have Kurt on board, but Aaron was a little ticked off that Ed didn't give her a heads up about it. She thought it was a bit convenient for them to just jump in now that all the hard work was done. But Ed pointed out that there were still costs to cover. He also mentioned that Kurt was an expert in this type of case, which was great news. The other day, Aaron got a letter at home from the office. In the letter, Ed said she could hire a babysitter and also gave her a new car. The letter had a check for Aaron's $5,000 salary in it. One day, Ed and Aaron bumped into Kurt and his assistant Teresa. They had a meeting where Kurt said PG&E wanted them to do an arbitration trial to sort out the case without involving a jury or judge's decision, and no chance to appeal. Kurt mentioned that it was risky, but it would speed up the case. Not being able to appeal might sound rough, but facing a big company like PG&E, a trial with an appeal could take a really long time, maybe 10 to 15 years, and a big company like PG&E with so much money would definitely drag it out. Aaron said they should have a trial with a jury because she had promised the folks in Hinckley a fair trial. Aaron couldn't believe it when Teresa showed her a box of work files that Aaron had been working on for 18 months. Teresa said she was going to add some things to the files, but Aaron argued that they were already complete. She then rattled off details about a resident and their family, proving that she had a good memory and learned quickly. One time, Teresa went to Hinckley to chat with the locals and fill them in on the trial. She asked the same stuff as Aaron, but she was way too formal. It was just so awkward that they didn't warm up to her. Aaron was really mad at Ed, and she was mad at Kurt for messing up their case. Ed admitted he shouldn't have worked with Kurt. The people in Hinckley didn't get what Kurt was trying to say through Teresa. They were thinking of getting a new lawyer because they felt like they had been lied to. But luckily, Aaron was able to help sort things out. The other day, Ed and Aaron set up a meeting for everyone. Ed told them that the best option was to have an arbitration trial, because if they went through a regular trial, PG&E could drag it out with appeals, and the residents wouldn't get their money for a long time. He was convincing enough in his explanation that the residents agreed to the arbitration trial. Ed and Aaron did get the approval papers, but some residents were still not around, so they had to go see them individually. That's why she called George for help with the kids while she and Ed went to visit the residents. Ed and Aaron went to each person and asked them to sign the agreement one by one. One evening at a bar, Aaron ran into a local and asked for his signature. At the same time, a guy named Charles came up to her. He tried to chat with her a few times, but she didn't have time. He confessed that he worked at PG&E and was once told to destroy a document. He knew and understood that he was asked to do that because the document would definitely make the company look guilty. The document said that the PG&E headquarters in San Francisco knew about the hexavalent chromium contamination in Hinckley for a long time. They knew from memos and water quality reports. Charles told Aaron that his brother passed away from cancer. He said his brother was told to clean the cooling tower without proper safety gear, just a medical mask. Charles was told to get rid of the document, but he didn't and kept it. He was going to give it to her to make the company pay for his brother's death. A couple of days later, Ed and Aaron got together with Kurt and Teresa, and they had a bunch of signed agreements for the arbitration trial from all 634 plaintiffs, even some papers from Charles. Kurt was totally surprised and couldn't believe what he'd just seen. Long story short, after the trial, Aaron and George headed to Hinckley. Aaron wanted George to see the impact of his help, so they met with Donna Jensen and shared the good news. PG&E lost the case and would be compensating Hinckley and its residents for all the mess they caused. Meanwhile, Ed got a fancy new office because he's a famous lawyer now, thanks to beating PG&E. He went to Aaron's room and handed her a check, saying the numbers were different than they talked about because their job didn't match up. Aaron got mad and insisted she deserved more for all her hard work. But then she saw the check was way more than she expected and shut up.
You want me to trust you? All you lawyers do is complicate situations that aren't complicated. You with their lives, and the whole time you're screwing me.
I decided that the figure you proposed